I'm Amy Dolan, and this is the Feeding People podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Season 3 of the Feeding People podcast. I'm Amy Dolan, your host. So beyond kitzeled to be with you for this third season. That's a Yiddish word that we use in my Jewish family a lot, kitzeled, to mean you're really, really excited, and I am kitzeled. I'm so thrilled to be back with you for a third season. It's been really special the first 2 seasons to be with you at this table and get to talk with people who are doing all sorts of great things with food. In just a minute, you're going to hear my conversation that I recorded with Chef Nicole Pederson, and I'm really excited for you to hear this. I actually went to the Center on Halsted to Nicole's office, and we did the interview there, and it was just really special to me. It meant a lot to me, and I hope that it's special to you too. If you're not familiar with the Center on Halsted, it's just the most beautiful place. It's in the Lakeview neighborhood of Chicago, and it's a community center dedicated to the health and well-being of the LGBTQ people of Chicago. It's doing all sorts of amazing things. And Nicole is the director of Culinary Arts at the Center on Halsted. I mean, what is that? It's so cool. She leads this thing called Silver Fork, which is a training program specifically at the center for the LGBT community and for those who are and underemployed and are interested in getting into a cooking profession. She trains them. Before coming to the Center on Halsted, she worked at the Gramercy Tavern. She worked at Lula's Cafe here in Chicago, and then Marcus Samuelsson's Sea House. I mean, it's just the best restaurants around, really. She's been cooking professionally for 20 years. And upon moving to Chicago, she went on to create and open a few of her very own restaurants, which all of those things led to where she is today at the Center on Halsted. And I just knew I had to connect with her and chat more and hear about what she's doing. So here's my interview with Chef Nicole Pederson. I hope you enjoy. I'm so thrilled today to have my guest, Nicole Pederson, with me. Nicole is the director of Culinary Arts at the Center on Halsted here in Chicago, and I just feel so lucky that we have this time with you. So thanks for joining us today, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
This is great. So we were just having a lot of fun talking about the 61st Street Market, and I feel like all of my listeners are probably tired of me talking about it. But since you brought it up,
because it's amazing.
It's amazing. Let's just say a minute. Like, what do we love? I just say it's magical. I'm not totally sure what that means, but it feels magical to me. What do you love about the 61st Street Farmers Market?
It is a magical place. Mm-hmm. It really is wonderful. The fruit vendors there in particular, for some reason, just really stand out in my mind. I love the fact that you can go and get those beautiful pies, those hand pies, and have lunch while you're there.
Yes.
But then also, I think some markets have a tendency to get focused on one thing or the other, whether it's like the food and the vendors or it's only about the vegetables. And I love that you can go there and you can have all of those things, and a coffee shop is close enough by that you can have coffee at the experimental station. And it's just such a cool, wonderful environment.
I mean, you summed it up perfectly. It's so true. And Wendy, who is the market manager, I think she curates it so beautifully. She puts that all together with the vendors and the go get a taco, go get a coffee,
Right.
So
it's such a great balance.
It's so good. All right, everyone. That's all I'm going to say, but get yourself there if you haven't yet. So, Nicole, how would you introduce yourself? Who are you?
So my name is Nicole Pederson. I've been a chef for 20 years. I'm a gardener. I'm a weaver. I love doing just about anything I can do with my hands. I love to plant and dig in the dirt, and I love to knit and sew in the wintertime. Just really kind of an overall, I guess, creative person.
That's awesome. So, okay, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Did you always know this is what you wanted to do?
Absolutely not.
No.
Nope. I remember my senior year of high school, I took one of those aptitude tests and it said I should be a professional baker. And I kind of laughed at it. I was like, I didn't really even realize that was something you could do as a profession. I kind of envisioned this like giant factory of making bread or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, why would you do that? And then things changed, obviously.
What was it? What sparked it for you?
I guess the first thing that really sparked it for me was a trip to France when I was 19. I had friends who were foreign exchange students in high school, and they invited me to come stay with them. And so I was just really lucky. I said yes to everything they put in front of me, and food just really changed for me. One, sitting around the table twice a day with the families was just this like incredible, amazing feeling. And then just the variety of food that I'd never seen and tasted before, being from the Midwest, was just really incredible. So when I came back to the States, I started working at a French restaurant because I was instantly a Francophile.
Yes.
And then actually there was a new chef who was brought on about 2 months after I was there. And once I'd been working with him for several months, he kind of pulled me aside and was like, why, it's not normal for you to need to know every single ingredient in every dish. And I'm like, well, no, that's my job. I wait tables here. I'm supposed to be able to talk to the guests about it. He's like, you spend more time standing in the kitchen, watching the guys break down fish and beef and paying attention to what's in recipes and taking them home and cooking them. He's like, don't you think you might want to do this for a career? And I was like, still in denial, like, no way. I don't think that's a good idea. And then, I took a step back and really started to think about it. And I knew that I loved to travel, and I knew this was a career I could do anywhere in the world. And I decided to take the plunge, and I decided to go to culinary school.
Wow. Okay. So we're just getting right to it. This is great. I can't stop. You're such a good storyteller already. I'm like, tell me everything.
Thank you.
So culinary school, I mean, what was it, what you imagined? Was it when you had hoped and you were thinking about cooking and traveling and all of that and just learning about food? Was it what you expected?
I think it was better than what I expected.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, it really didn't. So I feel like I got caught in a really unique kind of place for culinary schools just because it was, I was in Minneapolis. That's where I grew up. Well, I grew up in Minnesota, but I was living in Minneapolis at the time. And the Art Institute had just opened there. And so the culinary instructors who were teaching at the time were all chefs in restaurants. And so it was this kind of unique opportunity. Typically, you go to culinary school and the teachers have been teachers forever and they haven't been in the restaurant industry, and one owned a catering company. Another one was a chef at a country club and he had been to the CIA. Another one, just the list kind of goes on like that. And so I felt like when I was there, it was like, okay, this is how we teach you in culinary school, and this is what things are like in the real world. And so I felt like it was a really kind of eye-opening experience because it did, having worked in the restaurant industry as a server for like 5 years at that point, 6 years, I did understand what a restaurant functioned like. So it made a lot of sense and it really clicked. And I remember the first day I got to like flip food in a pan. And when I did it, it was so much fun. And one of the guys that was in my class looked at me and he's like, you really are in love with this, aren't you? And I was like, I think that I am. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love that. It's like an unexpected journey, but one that seems like it was meant to be, right?
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
Who you are, right? And who you were destined to be.
Yeah. Like from the instant I started culinary school, it was just like, I knew I was on the right path.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. You never look back. Wow. That's great. Like we could all be so lucky.
Yeah.
Right.
I do feel blessed for sure.
So you mentioned growing up in Minnesota. I'd love to know what food was like for you as a kid. Did your family have meals together? Did you go out to eat? Did someone teach you to cook? What was it like when you were a kid?
So growing up, my mom was a single mom, and it was my sister and my mom and I mostly when I was a kid. My mom grew up on a farm, and her mom was an incredible cook and, of course, cooked everything from scratch for her and her 5 brothers and sisters. And when I was very young, I was lucky that I spent a lot of time on the farm with my grandparents. And my grandmother I mean, as much as you can learn about cooking when you're 5, 6,
Right.
and 7 years old,
Yeah.
you know, I spent a ton of time in the kitchen with her and cleaning vegetables and making cookies and probably mostly just eating cookie dough. But
Of course.
of course, but just I was like in the kitchen with her when I could. And that kind of, you know, translated into how my mom cooked and how she thought about food. So my mom has always loved to cook, and she's always been a very good cook as well. But being a single mom, she didn't always have time to cook. So, I mean, there were definitely nights when scrambled eggs and peanut butter toast was dinner.
Yes.
But it was like, you know, it was always something that was whole food that was delicious. We never ate fast food unless we were, you know, on our way to our dad's house and maybe we could stop at Dairy Queen and get an ice cream cone.
Yes.
Because that was a requisite. But outside of that, you know, we really, there wasn't a lot of money for entertaining or going out to dinner or anything like that. So we really just ate at home, and I cooked with my mom. I think by the time I was a teenager and in high school, I had taken on a lot of the cooking. My mom and I baked together a lot when I was a little girl. And then as I got older, my mom always jokes that I just started kicking her out of the kitchen. And I was like, okay, I've got this. Don't worry. But as I've grown up and gone to culinary school and then became a professional chef, my mom's interest in food has also kind of like increased, and it's like piqued her interest and excitement in food. And so I feel like as I've grown as a chef, my mom has grown as a home cook. And so it's really fun to like get back together and cook with her. So like whenever we go home and gather for holidays and stuff, my mom and I are always the ones that like just cook for everybody for the whole week. It's really fun.
I love that.
I mean, I used to make too big of a mess in the kitchen and use too many pots and pans, but I think I've gotten over that.
I mean, I feel like the best meals, though, are the messiest meals, right? Like if you don't have a messy kitchen, did you cook?
Right.
Right?
Or you're just super good at cleaning as you go.
Oh, that's good. That's not me. So as you were in the kitchen with your mom growing up, I mean, and you were making food together, now when you cook, do you think, do any of those meals like bring back memories as you're cooking now? Like are there certain like the scrambled eggs and the toast? Are you just right back there with your mom as a kid?
I think the one ingredient that brings me back to my mom and to my grandmother is rhubarb. Rhubarb and green beans. Like those are the two things that speak to my summer childhood memories for sure.
Did they grow rhubarb?
Yeah.
And so you just pick it and make the pies and everything?
Yep.
Wow.
Rhubarb bars with meringue on top. I remember rhubarb punch. Rhubarb custard pie, which is like one of the most delicious things on the planet that I still love to make. Just a ton of everything with rhubarb.
Yum. It just brings you right back there.
Yep.
My grandmother grew rhubarb too, and we would pick it and then we would make a pie. That was all that we had. But it's so crazy how, and I feel like rhubarb is not used that much anymore, right? It's kind of like a forgotten thing, but I always feel like it's like vintage or my grandmother or something.
Definitely.
Vintage rhubarb.
Yep.
So what does food mean to you today? I mean, that's just such a big question, right? But like, obviously food is your passion and your profession. Like, what does it mean personally to you?
For me personally, food is, it's community. I mean, everything about it, the way it brings people together. I mean, if you're a chef working in a professional kitchen, the community is the people that you feed who walk through the doors. It's the farmers that you use as purveyors to bring the food into the restaurant. It's the staff that you sit down with at your family meal. For me now, working here at Center on Halsted, obviously community is a huge piece of that. It's making a safe place for the students to come and to learn about food and cooking. Yeah, it's about community for me.
I love that. Food really is like the great connector, right? Everyone has to eat. It's just like practical. But then to provide food that's beautiful and delicious and nutritious and all of that really does connect us. I love that. I love that it would be that special to you. So tell us more about the program here. Tell us more about Center on Halsted and Silver Fork. You mentioned teaching people to cook. Tell us all about that. I just love this program.
All right. So I'm the culinary director for a program called Silver Fork. I like to call it a culinary boot camp. So it's essentially a 9-week culinary program that teaches people skills to work in restaurants. So we focus on knife skills, recipe reading, recipe math, increasing and decreasing recipes. We also do some soft skills like job readiness stuff, writing resumes, doing interview skills, things like that. So the idea of the program is that it's for un and underemployed folks. However, we accept people from all walks of life. Of course, here at Center on Halsted, we focus on the LGBTQ community. But, I feel that we really embrace kind of the intersections of life, and it's really a rich, diverse population of people who come through the program. A lot of people come up from the south side or over from the west side, but we also have been trying to kind of increase our geographic reach in the last year. We've taken the program down to the southwest side, and we've partnered with the city colleges of Chicago.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So we taught our last cohort out of the Arturo Velasquez Institute. And it was really wonderful just like being able to take what we do here at Center on Halsted and take it to another neighborhood.
Wow. So so many questions.
No, please.
I love this so much. First off, how did you get here? Right? I mean, you've worked in so many fancy, wonderful restaurants, right? You've had your own restaurants.
Yep.
So how did your path lead you here to this beautiful program, training people to cook?
So, let's see. So as you said, I was an owner in a restaurant. I was a partner in a restaurant group in Evanston. I left there really not feeling great about the restaurant industry, about the path I had chosen, about where I was at in my career. Like I said, food is about community for me, and that has stood true for years. I feel that if you are going to own a restaurant and be a part of an establishment, that it really needs to be about not just, I mean, of course, there's the bottom line. And if you're not going to make money, there's no point in being open. Sure. However, you also have to be about community. Yes. Otherwise, I don't want to be a part of it. And so that's why I decided to leave. I felt like my partners were going in the direction of this is just to make money. And I was like, it's about the community we create. It's about the people we feed. It's about who we can bring in the doors and who we can train. It's about the farmers that we work with to grow the food that we can feed people. And those were the things that were most important. So when I left there, I really didn't know if maybe I was living in a fantasy world and that perhaps the restaurant business couldn't be that. And so I knew that I needed to do something else for a while. And I found out about Center on Halsted through a friend of mine who had been coming and doing some teachings and trainings at the Silver Fork program. And, once I started reading about it and thinking about this space, I just really knew that this is what I wanted to do next. I love teaching people about cooking, and I really needed to take a step away from the restaurant business. And I really didn't think that this job would be such a center of healing for me that it has been. It really has just really had an incredible impact on me and my life, which I feel kind of selfish saying that because it's like this job wasn't supposed to be about me. It's supposed to be about the people who come through the program. But I think just watching how Center on Halsted and Silver Fork actually truly can change people's lives. People come to us, maybe they're living in a sober living program and trying to make real change in their life. And a big piece of the program, I think, is just giving people confidence and skills to be able to go out into the world and, walk into a kitchen and say, hey, I know how to do this. I can be a team player here. Let's give me a job.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah. You're the most beautiful spirit. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
It's like food. Food has such power. And so when you give people the power to make their own food or cook for other people, it's like almost like that's the confidence you're giving them, right?
Right.
And we know because we love to make food for people, but if you don't do that regularly, you don't often get that joy or that confidence that comes from it, right?
Yeah. even like the little things of like women who have children who don't cook much at home, and then they come here and they start cooking from scratch, and then go home and start feeding their kids in a different way. And they just come back in and it's like, I cooked for my kids and they actually ate it and they thought it was delicious and we had an incredible dinner, or like sharing things with their family and their neighbors. I mean, it's just it's a transformative program, and it's just, like I said, it's also been transformative experience for me.
Yeah. Can you say anything more about that? Like, how has it healed you? How has it been transformative for you? What's something that's changed in your life as you've been teaching here?
I think just really going back to that community piece and really realizing that the food world is a community, and that I definitely was getting cynical about it, but like being able to be here and use, especially 'cause I've been in Chicago for about 13 years and they've never had a person in this role before who has been so deeply embedded in the Chicago culinary scene.
Oh, wow.
And so being able to really get the Silver Fork program out there to really inform a lot more chefs about what we're doing here, trying to bring more of our students into some kitchens that maybe they didn't have opportunities to even just observe. I mean, in the culinary world, we do something called a stage, which is when students get to spend a little bit of time in somebody else's kitchen. And, Abe Conlon at Fat Rice is like the number one chef that says, yes, let them come stage here. And it's like, kids who've never, kids, I always say kids, but it's adults. It's people from all walks of life. But, people who maybe never even worked in a restaurant kitchen before, can go in and see this James Beard award-winning chef's kitchen and what it runs like.
The goosebumps on my arms right now.
Right. And, not every student who comes through the program wants to go that route. We have people come through the program that are working at Chicago Public Schools. Another one of our graduates recently got a job working at an assisted living facility. And it's just like exactly what they wanted to do. And they're just so pleased that they get to go into this position where they're like working with elderly people and helping people.
It's unbelievable. So you're not only like, you're being transformed as you're teaching and feeding people and giving them the skills they need, but then I can't even imagine how rewarding it is to watch their success.
Yeah.
That's just got to be the greatest thing.
Right? It really is.
And to meet others, like you mentioned, like at Fat Rice, to meet others and to know others who share your passion in the restaurant industry and want to help people, right? I was going to ask you that. When you talk about like the environments in restaurants that create community or don't, what's something you've noticed? Like what's a factor or a characteristic of a restaurant that's really focused on creating great community? Like what do they do?
I mean, I think you can see it in the care of how the menu is written, whether, if they talk about the purveyors that they work with, if they're concerned with, if they talk about their staff, like even on their website, like if you look at a restaurant's website where they have a conversation about their staff, they have a conversation about the people who are purveying the food. If they, are putting those sorts of things out there, typically those are the types of restaurants where people are willing to like teach and help and watch people grow.
Those are things you can see right away.
Yeah.
I always say there's like, you can feel the energy. It's like, it feels like very indescribable actually, like, but you can feel a bad vibe.
Yeah.
It's like, I always want to like qualify it like, oh, it's because the staff is crabby or the whatever, but it doesn't feel like you can always qualify. It just feels like a bad vibe.
Yeah.
And I always think like, why just, okay, whatever. Like if it's a bad vibe, it's usually like the staff culture, right?
Yep.
And I'm just not interested in spending money and being in a place where it feels like a bad vibe, right? So
Agreed.
Notice the places where the energy is good and you feel good.
Right.
And go there.
Yeah. Where the people are warm and welcoming and happy.
Right. Exactly. Right.
I mean, if, yes, of course, everybody can have an off day, but typically, like you said, you can just tell when you walk in if the energy from the ownership isn't one of community and teaching and sharing and growing, then you can usually feel it as soon as you walk in the door.
Yeah. Well, how do you teach your students that? Like, is there any, are you just
That's
like,
a big question.
Are you like, be a good person, be kind? Well, like, is there a way that you can like tangibly, I'm sort of selfishly asking also for myself in creating this dinner church where, we're not a restaurant, but we're always hoping to be an environment where people feel safe and welcome. We say like we're creating wider tables. We're just stretching out the table farther and farther. Everyone's welcome. Everyone's invited. Everyone participates. And so I'm like always trying to pick up tips and tricks for like, how do you do that? How do you teach people and encourage people to really be warm and welcoming and kind and gracious so that when we sit at the table together, we feel good.
Right. I think it really is, leading by example. Like, I mean, how else are you going to do it? Right.
Yeah. Right.
Be the change that you want to see in the world.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Just talking to the students about, we do have a lot of conversation about interactions and how you treat one another in small spaces. We're walking through kitchens where we have knives and hot boiling water and hot pans and, just daily having conversations about respecting the person next to you. And, we do things like we rotate people being in charge for the day, like sous chef for the day, just to try to get people used to taking orders from their peers, because a lot of times, especially in professional kitchens, it's really difficult when you are new someplace, or let's say maybe you haven't been employed for a long time and now you're in an environment where you have 3 or 4 people telling you all day, every day what to do.
Sure.
But at the same time, you're like, well, that person is chef. You're not the chef. It's like, no, that's not how it works. Everybody has to work as a team.
Yes.
So just really talking to people about creating teams and how to work on a team together. And then, like I said, just kind of emulating that change.
Yes. Yes.
Talking about, and of course, a big part of the Center on Halsted and the program is acceptance of people and taking people, bringing people in and accepting them where they are. You don't have to be at this level. Yes. You can be here, wherever that means for you in your life, whether it's in your identity and your orientation and your skills and whatever. Yeah. Meeting folks where they are is important.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. That's great. You mentioned this a little bit, but I want to dig a little bit deeper into it. Like, how would you connect food to some of the inequality that we see specifically in Chicago or specifically at the center that you experience? How would you connect food to in some of the injustices, power structures? I mean, there's a little basic question.
That's just a very small subject to tackle.
In 2 sentences or less. No.
Right. Sure. Well, in Chicago, I think it's very cut and dry and black and white. It's very obvious with the food deserts. I think there's a lot of people out there trying to make change. The 61st Street Market, the McKinley Park Farmers Market, Urban Growers Collective, who is building beautiful gardens all over. And
one of the vendors at 61st Street Market.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And they've got their bus that they drive over to 47th and are trying to get their, what is it called? Fresh moves. Yeah.
Yes.
Trying to move it around. But, it's like all these small, private, non-for-profits that are trying to make these changes. And if we don't, I think, see the changes on a larger citywide level, that's not really going to move the needle. You drive south down Archer and you see, you start heading out towards Midway and you see some small family restaurants maybe, but suddenly popping up are all these fast food chains all the way down. You drive north at Milwaukee, you don't see fast food chains on the north side of Chicago,
Right.
And it's like, is it part of aldermanic privilege that the aldermans on the south side are just more willing to let that in and let those pass because they feel like that's what the neighborhood wants? But it's like, really, that's what the neighborhood wants? Just because we're talking about people of color who have lower incomes, like fast food chains is what people want you to bring into their neighborhoods. Right. I highly doubt it.
Exactly.
So it's,
oh boy, Nicole.
I know. It's like, I guess I could just ramble about inspired. It forever.
But like, what can we do? Like, what to you is the most important thing to do? Because it's so, especially in Chicago, it's very overwhelming to me. And so I just feel like if I just keep my head down and do the thing I'm supposed to do, like my little part, then hopefully everyone's doing their little part and it someday like adds up to something. But I don't know if that's right. What's the most important thing to do? I mean, how do we really affect anything?
I think there is the piece of doing your own small part, but I also think that we kind of have to step outside of our worlds and give back to organizations that are doing that. Talk to, here's one, get involved in the government, like call your alderman, call your senator, ask questions like, why is the Farm Bill never a part of the conversation when we are talking about presidential elections? Like, why don't we talk about the Farm Bill? It's like, if we're going to look at how the problems with farming and food in the United States have affected the entire country and our obesity rates and really climate change and all of those things, we have to go all the way back and start looking at what the government did in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, right? And now if we want to affect any change, more than 30% of the population has to vote and has to care about it.
Yes.
So how can you make a difference? Talk to people about that. Next time somebody brings up politics to you, talk to them about the Farm Bill.
Yes.
Do they even know it?
That's
Have
amazing.
they ever even had that conversation with anyone? It's the Farm Bill is written for Big Ag, and that's it. Yep. Small family farms are disappearing all across the United States. One thing I don't even know if people know, like the small family dairy is gone. Yes. Like there's no such thing as a small family dairy anymore. There are, farmers at farmers markets and things like that who are struggling to make it happen, but they're still making it happen. But family dairies are done. Nobody can do that anymore. The bottom has fallen out of that market. Like that. And I don't know that people even see those things.
Right. That's really good. Thank you. I actually I receive that as something for me to do. I love to talk about politics and all sorts of issues, but I never think to include the Farm Bill and talking about farmers and their welfare in the conversation of politics. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Because that's exactly what shaped our food system into what it is now.
Yes.
And people don't admit that.
Yes.
It's like they talk a lot about big business doing that. Yes. But who enabled big business to do that? The government.
Yes. This is why... Who knew the show was going to be all about the 61st Street Farmers Market? But this is why I think it is so important to be at the farmers market shopping also, especially from the small family farms. One that we've gotten to know just was telling us about how much of their full income comes from the Chicago markets, right? They're like family farms in Michigan, and they make most of their profit from the Chicago shoppers, right? And that feels good that we can contribute to that, So that's something, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That is absolutely a big deal. I feel like if you I think they say something like on average, people used to spend 20 or 30% of their income on food, and now people spend 10%.
Wow.
So, as Americans, we're completely obsessed with this idea of cheap food and that we're not supposed to spend all our money on food. And I think that there's also a conversation there to be had just about kind of reevaluating life, right? It's like really only 10% of your income is going to be on food. And I'm not saying, as a former restaurateur, spend 20 or 30% and go out to eat every night. I'm just talking about making good food choices, and whether it's local and shopping at a farmer's market or, making sure that you're making healthy food choices by eating fish a couple times a week or, whole proteins and whole grains and all of those other things that are also very important.
Yes. Okay. We're going to need a second episode. All of this is so good. Thank you so much for all of that. I feel less depressed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And very inspired. To do my own thing, but also I love what you said about stepping out of our own things also and giving back. That was really beautiful. I want to think about that and how I can do that. And then also be talking about the Farm Bill and politics. That was great. Thank you. Okay, let's finish with a little bit of a lightning round. Smooth transition.
Yes, definitely smooth. Out of the serious and back to the fun.
What's the best meal you've ever had?
That's impossible.
Yeah, right.
A couple of years ago, one of my best friends and I travel all over together, and we had an opportunity to go to Paris. And I was trying to figure out where are we going to eat? What are you going to do when you're in Paris? Especially being a former Francophile. Yes. Still kind of current Francophile. How do you tackle Paris in a week and eat all of the best food? So we decided to look at it through a lens of supporting or looking for female chefs. So female chef focused restaurants is all that we wanted to do. And it was such a cool way to like dissect the restaurant scene in Paris, especially, I mean, this was like 2.5, 3 years ago. So after a lot of those stories had come out about all of the top Michelin chefs and how few women are
I was going to ask,
in
like,
the industry.
how many female chefs were there in Paris?
There were a lot.
Okay.
Actually.
Wow.
But I think one of the most memorable meals came from a place that was pretty newly opened. And it was really memorable in that, like, it was like this entire front of the house of women, a female chef at the head counter, and then a bunch of male line cooks behind her. And it was just,
I love this.
It's two sisters that own it. It's called La Servan. And we just had a beautiful, perfect, simple lunch that was like every step of the way, like even down to like this amazing chocolate tart that just like had never seen a refrigerator. The pastry was like so perfectly thin and it just like melted in your mouth.
Oh my gosh.
And the wine selection, I mean, it was amazing.
I wish everyone could have seen like your eyes during that. You were like in dream mode. Your eyes were like closing and you were like transported back to Paris.
Yes, it was amazing.
It sounds so good. So that's the best meal, or one of the best.
One of the best.
Yeah.
I think that trip in general was
Yeah.
I mean, we ate at Michelin starred Madame de Pique and
Oh my gosh.
Alain de Rose's restaurant. And I mean, just so many amazing female chefs.
That's what a great thing to do.
Yeah, it was really cool.
It's a really good idea. What do you drink? Cocktails?
Yes.
Okay. What's your favorite cocktail?
I mean, again, it's like, what time of year is it? Have I eaten dinner yet? All right. So it's fall. This summer we drank all summer something called a spaghetti.
Okay. What's that?
Ridiculous. It is Miller High Life, where you dump off the first like inch and you pour in either Campari or Aperol and a little squeeze of lemon juice. And it's just like kind of adds this nice like bitterness, but it's like so refreshing.
Kelly,
in the
we're
summer.
doing this. Did you make it yourself or did you go somewhere?
You can do both.
Okay.
You can definitely make it at home very easy though.
Yeah. I love spaghetti. I've only done the beer and the margarita with the beer.
Oh, right. A beer garita.
Beer garita. That was surprisingly delicious. Yes. I don't know why it shouldn't be. Okay. Where must people eat when they come to Chicago?
All right. If you're looking for a super high-end fine dining tasting menu, Oriel. I mean, it's just one. I mean, if you're talking about the best meal I've had on this continent.
Wow.
Incredible. And then Cafe Mary Jean is just such a special place.
I've never been there.
It's over on California and Augusta. They're open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Mike Simmons is the executive chef there. And the food is French, but it's somewhere between Montreal and Paris. And it's just like incredibly unique. And he just kind of cooks whatever he wants. And he doesn't care what anybody else thinks. And he just like truly cooks from his heart and soul.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite. Just give me whatever you got going on back there.
Yeah. And then two new ones that just opened that I went to both recently and loved, adored. One is called Supercana International, which I've been waiting for them to open forever. They're doing Indian, and I used to go to their pop-ups when they were doing Bombay Breakdown. And so that was super great. And then John and Beverly Kim just opened Wherewithal next door to Parachute, which Parachute is incredible. And Wherewithal just, I mean, they knocked it out of the park with that one.
I mean, to get a recommendation from you, this is amazing. This has been so lovely. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Thank you so much for showing us your heart and your passion, and just the reminder that food is more than just business. Food is more than just making money, and it's about connecting with each other and having community. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
As we finish up today, what would you like to say to listeners? Would you just offer some parting guidance, some parting wisdom?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think something that has just really changed. I mean, obviously, I said this has changed my life, and not everybody can go out and work for a non-profit that changes their lives. But there is so much community work out there that people can do. And I think that when you walk into it, you should just realize, that don't just walk in there with this like savior mentality, walk in there and realize how much you kind of have to gain from the people that you're helping. And that you should be honored that people are allowing you to help them.
Nicole, thank you so much. That's beautiful. So good to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This has been awesome.